Hello and welcome to the Storytelling for the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Kanata, and this is the place we talk about all things expressive writing and other creative techniques, all with a little bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer thrown in. Buckle up and enjoy. Hello everyone, it has been quite some time since I recorded a podcast, but I promise you that I am back and I will be recording regularly from now on. So why the pause? Well, over the last 3 months or so, I decided to experiment with some new business activities, and given I work full time, all of my storytelling for the soul work basically happens after hours and on weekends. So choosing to try out a few different things meant hitting pause on some other things. And unfortunately, one of those other things was this podcast. And I say unfortunately very genuinely because I've missed being here. I've missed the low production values of just having the opportunity to hit record and to talk about whatever is on my mind. Speaking of what is on my mind, the idea for this episode came from a question that I asked a friend of mine last night. I asked her, do you know anyone else who has pivoted in business more than I have? And she replied, yes, me. So where did that question come from? So I was on a chat about a week or so ago with another good business friend, and it was a mentoring session, and we were bouncing ideas back and forth about where to with storytelling for the soul. And in terms of mentoring and coaching, I've had loads over the decade that I've been in business, and it really is a little bit like dating, if I'm honest with you. I shudder to think of how much I've spent on business coaching and mentoring, especially when I first started and I was working full-time in business. I actually don't want to know what that figure is because it would be significant. However, recently I've started working with one of my friends because I know she's really good at what she does. She's in marketing, and I know that I can have honest, open, and transparent conversations with her. And we were riffing back and forth. And during this call, and I think the real magic of mentoring is finding someone who's a good fit for you and who can ask the questions that lead you to these aha moments. So one aha moment that I had last week is that I've kind of lost my way a little bit with storytelling for the soul. It's not that I don't feel aligned with the offers that I am putting out there, but I think far too much of my focus has been on outcomes. And that's just, unfortunately, a result of doing business. Because if you're not selling, do you have a business? No, you've got a hobby. So during this call, what I realized is that at the end of the day, I'm a writer and I write. And writing is what I love to do. Of course, I've been writing all along for storytelling for the soul, but I want to do more of it. I want to do more of that and less of things like, this is going to sound horrible, but I don't mean it in this way, trying to come up with the perfect angle for Instagram videos. Of course, that's part of being in business, promotion, that kind of thing. But I think back to when I was happiest in my business, and it was in my first business where basically I was selling copywriting services and public relations services. Wasn't so happy with the PR work, but anyhow, let's focus on the freelancing work. And what made me the happiest that I recall being in business was when I became a Huffington Post blogger. That lit me up like few things have, if I'm honest with you, over the last decade. And I enjoyed working on those blogs, chatting with people, meeting new people, listening, understanding their story. And so on this call last week, I had this revelation that I want to do more writing and see where it leads me. Because at the end of the day, I'm a writer. I can try all different kinds of things, speaking, recording videos. Of course, part of being business is pushing beyond your comfort zone. And I think the last year has been incredibly invaluable for me, from the sense that I've really shed that fear of being seen on camera and speaking. It's still not my favorite thing to do. I still get a lot of anxiety around speaking, but I know now, after the last year of saying yes to basically every single opportunity that came my way and not allowing the fear of public speaking to cripple me and rob me of opportunities, I know that I can do it. Am I the most polished of speakers? No. I don't have to be, because as part of my business, I'm not trying to be polished. I am flawed. I'm happy to be flawed. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a little bit awkward. I'm not this glam person. I like walking around in hoodies and in comfort, and I'm not really interested at 38 years old in trying to pretend to be anything else that I am. Back to the core of this episode, this notion that pivoting is somehow failure. And so since this call with my mentor friend last week, I've really had to take a good look at myself, because honestly, I have pivoted so many times in business, and part of my thinking around this, which is not correct, and I've course corrected basically through journaling today, part of my thinking around this is, how many times are you going to pivot? Every single time you pivot, Sarah, it means starting again. That's not true. I'm not starting again. And this doesn't have to only apply to business. You can think of anything in your life. Maybe it's friendships for you, relationships, finding your perfect partner, maybe it's health, maybe it's wellness generally, maybe it's setting boundaries. It could be absolutely anything. But we're human beings and we're living, and that means that we are evolving and changing, hopefully. And I do not believe for 1 second that I'm starting again. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm taking the learnings from my lifetime, and in particular the last year, and I'm taking them with me. And I don't know where I'm going with this pivot. All I know is that I'm committed to following what lights me up, what brings me joy. And at the end of the day, I am perfectly comfortable with whatever outcomes do or do not come with that. Because I know that there's been much change in my life, including people, places, and things. However, writing has always remained the one constant. So in my mind and in my heart, I actually can't go wrong by following writing and pursuing that, because it makes me happy. It fills my cup. And I encourage you to do the same with whatever fills your cup and with whatever brings you joy. And don't for 1 second think that a pivot equates to failure. Because I think one of the saddest things is how we grow up. We go through primary school, high school, and then at around 18, someone asks us to make a career choice, and we're expected to do that for the rest of our lives. Are we? I don't know. It's 2025. It's been a long time since I had to make that decision. However, what I know through my friends, through my business network, is that it's really rare to find someone who, for example, has a degree as a lawyer and who's over a certain age, like let's call it 40 plus, and is still working in the exact same field. And it makes sense. We're changing. We're learning. We're evolving. I think it's actually pretty ridiculous to try to pick a career and a future for the rest of our lives at such a young age. And I know for me, I had absolutely no life experience at 18. I did luck out because I ended up studying a Bachelor of Journalism. I never really worked in journalism. I always went, basically my first proper job was in communications, and that has really served me well. So, my message to you today is that if you're feeling like a recent pivot or a future pivot that you know is coming looks like failure, please know it's not, and please know that you're not alone. I don't think people often talk about this, and I assure you that basically everyone's social media feed is a highlights reel. It's very, very rare to find someone who is posting openly, transparently, and just laying it all out there for the world to see. And I get it. Yes, I feel like I have very transparent social media accounts, but some things belong to me. And they're the things that I'm unlikely to ever share. But I know what's inside my head, my heart, and trust me, if you follow where you are being called and where you are being drawn to, you cannot possibly go wrong in life. And think about all the evidence behind you. Even if it feels like you're a little bit lost right now, every single time in the past, you have found your way. Things somehow are always okay in the end. Change is part of life. I'm going to leave it here. I will catch you in the next podcast episode, which I promise will not be as far away as this episode has taken me to record. If you would like to read my writing, access any of my content about journaling, head over to my website, sarahkanata.com. Sarah is spelled S-A-R-A-H. And then Kanata is C-A-N-N-A-T-A. I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening to this and you want to share, please reach out to me via email, info@sarahkanata.com. Spelling is exactly the same. Thank you and catch you next week.